Welcome, everybody, to WebChat with Minnesota Adult Education. This is Brad Haskamp. Glad to have you here today to share some updates with you. In our web chat for today, on our agenda, we're going to kick off with a Literacy Action Network sponsor message. Literacy Action Network is the host of these web chat sessions, and we want to make sure that we give them a chance to share any important updates from their organization. So we'll kick off with that. Afterwards, we will share some announcements, talk about program performance, discuss grants and funding, discuss some transitions updates, as well as some professional development updates, including preparation for the fall manager meeting. And then we'll have time for your questions as well. So let's dive right in. We'll start with some introductions of our Minnesota Adult Education team here at the Minnesota Department of Education. My name is Brad Haskamp. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the State Adult Education Director. I'm going to pass it off to Astrid.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Astrid Leiden. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Professional Development Specialist on the team. And I'll pass it to Haley.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Haley Swanson. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Grants and Records Admin Specialist with this team. And I will pass it off to Jody.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jody Versa. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Program Quality Specialist on the team. And I will pass it to Julie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julie Dinko. I'm the Transitions Specialist. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll pass it off to Neil.
Hi, everybody. My name is Neil Allard. My pronouns are they, them. I'm the Records, Communications, and Admin Support Specialist.
Excellent. So that is our robust team of 6 individuals working hard to support you and your work in adult education programs. What a great team. Again, this is Brad. And as we move to the next slide, I'm going to hand it off to Kaya for our Literacy Action Network sponsor message. Again, Literacy Action Network hosts these web chat sessions, and we're so grateful for Wendy's technical assistance support and Literacy Action Network for supporting and hosting these events. So Kaya, I'll turn it off to you.
Hi, thanks, Brad. Hi, everyone. My name's Kaya, she, her pronouns. I work at the International Institute of Minnesota, and I am the president of the board of the Literacy Action Network up through the end of this year. And then I'll be passing the hat off to Ann Truckle. So just a couple of quick announcements from LAN. First, I want to thank everyone who was part of Summer Institute. It was really nice to see everybody in person and to have everyone participate. This AEFL week has already started, and I saw in the chat there's a lot of really great stuff people are already doing. I wanted to highlight that there are also social media graphics that if you are able to share on your program's social media or your personal social media, you can access through the Literacy Action Network website. The links are in the chat. These come from COABE, and I think they have some really nice general messages to help raise awareness about adult education. We're also asking that people consider reaching out to their Minnesota representatives, so your House representative or your Minnesota state senator, to invite them to come and visit your program this fall. You'll hear a little bit from our legislative committee co-chair, Scott Helland, later in these slides about the work of our legislative committee, but AEFL week is a great time to reach out and just say, hey, in honor of what's going on in the recognition, we hope that you might come to our program sometime this year. We made a draft letter that you can use that you're welcome to edit to reflect what works well for you. The next thing that I want to highlight too is that the Literacy Action Network did a refresh on our stock photography collection. So some of you may know back in like 2022, we did a big photo shoot of ABE programs and students. We did another one this summer. A big thank you to Ariane Mermel, Bruce Silcox, Burnsville ABE, Mankato ABE, Minneapolis ABE Low Vision Services, and Cambridge ABE. We were able to get a ton of pictures. There are like hundreds of them. So please make use of them. The students were compensated for their participation. They all, we've had a pretty extensive orientation around the fact that these are pictures that are designed to be used statewide in social media, on flyers. So please make use of them. You can use them too for AEFL week if you want to supplement the graphics. So yeah, the link for that is also in the chat. Oh, Carly, I'm happy to hear you've been using them. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight and remind everyone about is that the MN ABE website has had a refresh. So if you remember the sort of light purple kind of older style website that used to exist, it is now much more updated for the times that we're in. And this is a website that is kind of a hub for all of adult education statewide. It's a place for you to access information about grants and funding, policies for adult education. If you want to learn more about just the adult education system statewide, there's maps, there's contact information. So go ahead and explore it. And also, if there are things that you notice or things that need to be updated about it, you can reach out to Wendy at info@literacyactionnetwork.org. And we want to make sure that we keep this a living resource for everyone in the field. So my last slide here, I'm going to turn over to our legislative co-chair, Scott. As many of you know, the Literacy Action Network, one part of what we do is advocate for adult education at a state level, and that is helmed by our legislative committee, and Scott is one of our co-chairs, so he can speak a little bit more to that.
Well, during AEFL week, this would be a great time because between now and Thanksgiving would be a great time to go ahead and invite your legislators to your program. We don't really have anything other than the fact that in the future we plan to be asking for some additional funding, just as we did this last year. But mainly what we want to do is we want to have legislators associate Wilmer with the program there. We want to have them associate Melrose with that program. We want to have them associate whatever program services their area with some real humans, some real students, so that it's their program. It's not just something that they're talking about in a legislative sense. So making that grassroots attempt to have adult basic education, adult education be a part of every community across the state. You can kind of see the timeline here in the slide of the different things we're going to do. And if you're interested in joining even more so, every or monthly on the Fridays, we do meet as a legislative committee virtually quite often as well. And if not, we would have a virtual link available.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. And one thing I do want to flag that's exciting is that COABE, which is the National Organization for Advocacy for Adult Ed, reached out to us because they wanted to recognize Governor Walz with an award for his advocacy for adult ed at a federal level. And I know a lot of you were involved this summer in doing that advocacy work of making sure that our federal funding came through. So thank you for all of that. We're really excited about it. And I think it's a good example of how it does matter for us to work together as a state to speak up for adult ed. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you to Brad and the rest of the team for giving us a chance to spotlight some of what Literacy Action Network's doing. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kaya. This is Brad. And thank you also, Scott. So before we move on, I just want to make sure to see if there are any questions for Kaya or Scott regarding Literacy Action Network. Yes, we're very appreciative for all of the work that Literacy Action Network does to help lead our Minnesota adult education system and make sure that we are visible and that people understand who we are. All right, I'm not seeing any questions at this moment. I'm going to be a little slow just to see if anyone's typing, but let's move on to announcements. We have several system-wide announcements to share with you today. First, we want to also just celebrate that this is National Adult Education, Adult Literacy and Family, oh dear Lord, it is National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. We're so glad to be celebrating this week with you. And if you haven't put yet in the chat, I know many of you did when you joined us, but if you haven't yet said in the chat, we'd love to know, how are you celebrating National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week? Let's go to the next slide. Please continue to add those into the chat. We want to make sure that you see some of those resources. So I'm just reiterating and ensuring that you see those resources that Literacy Action Network has pulled together. They have a great social media image that you can use, as well as a full toolkit on their website. So please use that information for your work this week as you tell the story of adult education. In addition to the information and resources that Literacy Action Network has, COABE nationally has been hosting a wide variety of events this week to celebrate Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. They've had podcasts and webinars for the field, and so please feel free to join those. They also record those so you can see those recordings afterwards. But we're really appreciative of all the work that COABE is also doing for this week. And one thing in particular I wanted to show you is that COABE has produced some fact sheets, some informational resources that are Minnesota specific. And that they've done that for each and every state. So that is really exciting. And you can take a look at some of those Minnesota specific resources that either they have produced or that they've pulled from the Institute of Education Sciences, or other types of information that is Minnesota specific. As you look at these resources, you may think like, oh, those numbers don't look like other numbers I've seen. And that is because the numbers that they're using are specific to what is found in the National Reporting System, which only looks at federal participants. It does not look at all enrollees. In addition to that, they also look at just state match of our state funding, not all of our state funding with some of those resources. So you'll see maybe some of those numbers won't quite look the same as what you've seen with other resources that we share, but still these are valuable resources to check out. And when we think about our system, let's talk about the people of Minnesota adult education. So when we at Summer Institute, we share the number of Minnesota adult education students or enrollees that were based off of the MEGS, the statewide table A. And now we have the deduplicated count from Jenny and the SID team. And so our deduplicated count of adult student enrollees for 24-25 was 57,772, which means that there are a couple thousand folks that are actually co-enrolled in multiple consortia's programs, which is not surprising. And it's great to see learners really advocating and participating so actively within our system. And we have 1,245 adult education staff. Of those, almost 1,000, just under 1,000 are teachers. Of those teachers, 959 teachers, 68% of those teachers are part-time. So a very large part-time field that we have here in Minnesota, which is not surprising, but that makes us a somewhat unique education system. And then we have supporting all of our staff, we have nearly the same number, more than 1,000 ABE volunteers in our system, which in Minnesota, we've always been proud of our robust volunteer system with supporting our adult education programs. So again, I always like to compare, like if we put all of our enrollees, staff, and volunteers together, what would we be as a city? And we would be more than 61,000 folk, or we would be around 60,000 folks, and we'd be the 17th largest city in the state, so bigger than Apple Valley would be our statewide city of adult education and here in Minnesota. And when we look at the funding for this year, we have the majority of our funding comes from state adult basic education funding. More than 55 million is coming from state ABE funding, and 6.1 million is coming from federal funding. In addition to that federal adult education consortium grant, we have our IELCE funding, $1 million in IELCE funding. And if you compare to last year, some things that you can take away from that is that our state funding has increased from last year to this year, which is great. Unfortunately, though, our federal money and our IELCE, or Integrated English Literacy and Civics Education grant funding, is going down, has been going down. So that is one of the first times we've seen this in about since about 2017 is the last time we saw a decrease in our federal funding. And what does that mean in terms of our contact hour rates? So for this year, for our 25-26 funding, the state ABE contact hour rate is $8.82. And the federal adult education contact hour, based on last year's contact hours, is 81 cents. So again, state funding makes up the majority of that funding. And remember, contact hours are very important. And what is more important, our ultimate goal here is student success. Students being able to access adult education services, adults being able to succeed and achieve their career, educational, and life goals with the support of adult education. And that is our ultimate goal of our work here. One other statewide update to note is it is time to start thinking again about our state WIOA plan. Again, WIOA is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and we have a state plan for Minnesota that includes adult education, the other WIOA program partners, and that also includes Perkins and some other program partners. And so one thing you may want to do is take a look at our plan. We did submit in 2024 a four-year plan, and that can be found on the Deeds website in the link that Neil shared in the chat. And every 2 years, we need to either submit a new plan or a revision. This year, in spring of 2026, we will need to submit a revision to this four-year plan for the next 2 years. And what is helpful to know is we want to get your input. What would you like to see revised in that plan based on what you're reading? Whether it's in the Commons section that applies to all WIOA programs and partners, or whether it's in the adult education specific section. We'd love to get your feedback. And just note though, we still do not know the timeline for making those revisions, but the timeline will likely be very short, as little as a couple of weeks to suggest any revisions to that plan. So we're encouraging you to take a look at that plan now. Let us know if you see any revisions. For us as a team, we haven't really had a chance to look at or suggest any plans ourselves, but at this point, we don't know if there will be any big, robust changes that we would propose at this point, but we still need to discuss that as a team. So yeah, I know we worked really hard on that a couple of years ago with our WIOA partners. So again, if you have any suggested revisions, please let me know. That is it for our announcements. At this point, I'm going to pause for a minute. Anything from you, Haley, before we move on?
No questions in the chat at this point.
Thank you, Haley.
Mhm.
Okay, then I'm going to pass it off to Jody to talk about program performance.
All right, thank you, Brad. This is Jody, and we're going to take a few minutes to talk about program performance. I'm going to kick off that conversation by walking you through the recently released 2025 MN ABE report card. So Neil just put that document into the chat. I invite you, if you'd like to open that up. Hopefully, probably many of you have already seen it. We're just going to quickly take a walk through what is in this document, and you can think about why it's important to you and how you might use it. So generally, an overview of this document is that it gives all of us who work in adult education an opportunity to see how student numbers, funding, and outcomes compare to the other consortia across the state. So we do encourage you to be not only looking at your own results on the report card, but also check out which other consortia might be similar to you, to your consortium where you're working, and kind of check out their results as well. It might be a good way to figure out what other programs you might like to reach out to, or try to get a sense of who's doing things really well, and maybe some conversation will be worthwhile. So we encourage you to use the report card that way, in addition to just using it to see how you've done. So on the first report or table that is included in the report card is about state aid per participant. So this report basically shows the state ABE grant award for this year for each consortium, and then how many participants for that consortium from last year, and divides it out to a amount of state aid per participant. This is one of many ways of thinking about the distribution of funding. Excuse me. And there is no accountability requirement associated with this report and this table, just kind of for your information and sort of to ponder and compare across the state. So that is the first report. The next report that's included in the report card is about measurable skill gains, or MSGs, specifically for your participants who are ABE level participants. So on this report, you can see the number of participants, and then the percentage that have earned an MSG, and of course, sort of compare your consortium to other consortia across the state. For MSGs, we do have some accountability requirements and expectations. We have a target we are trying to hit at the statewide level, and we have a program improvement benchmark, which we're going to get to in a minute here. The next report in the report card, thank you, Neil, is that same information about MSGs, but this one includes ESL level participants. So again, how many participants, and then the percentage of those folks who earned an MSG over last year. Again, you'll see a statewide target that we have, and then below that, a program improvement benchmark. The next report in the report card is about post-testing rates. So on this report, you can see a number of participants, and then, remember, participants means students who have 12 or more hours, then the percentage of those that had a post-test, and then the number of those folks who got to 40 hours and what percentage of those students had a post-test. We have an important update to this report this year. This is the only change in this year's report card when compared to previous years. So we have now, as our system has added some additional options for MSGs, we recognize that pre-test and post-test is not the only way for your students to show a gain. So we adjusted this table to exclude students who achieved some other kind of a gain. So now on the column at the very right looks at all of your participants who got to 40 hours, but then we subtract out any of those folks who got another MSG, including MSG 1D, which is the single subject GED or HiSET test, MSG 2, which would be completing a GED or getting a diploma, and then 3, 4, or 5, MSGs 3, 4, and 5 are those that are associated with workforce programming, IETs, credentials, that kind of thing. So for this report, we have made this a little bit narrower, really to focus on your students who are getting to 40 hours and haven't shown a gain in any other way. So that was a new development, a new adjustment for this particular report this year. And then the last two reports are about retention and persistence. This first one shows your ABE level participants. So this is where you can see the number of enrollees, which is all students regardless of hours. and then number of participants, which is those who get to 12 hours, and then of those, the ones that get to 40 hours. There are no accountability requirements or targets on this table, so this one is mostly informational and to sort of see how you compare with other consortia across the state. And then the last report on the report card is that same information about retention and persistence, but this one is specifically for ESL level participants. So I'm going to pause just a second to see if anybody has any questions about the report card. I don't see anything. And if not, I'm going to turn it over to Astrid to talk a little bit more about targets and program improvement.
Great, thank you, Jody. This is Astrid. So as Jody mentioned, one of the ways that we use the data on the program, on the report card, is to identify consortia for program improvement. So program improvement is a state required process for consortia whose MSGs or post-testing rates fall 30% below the targets that have been set. So looking back in the 24-25 year, our MSG target was 36.7, and the program improvement benchmark was 25.7%. And for post-testing, our expectation is that 60% of all participants are post-tested, and the benchmark for program improvement is 60% of all participants with 40 plus hours, and then excluding those other MSGs that Jody talked about, 1D, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this year we have identified a number of programs for program improvement. Five consortia have been notified that they'll be going through a program improvement process. So we can go to the next slide here. We haven't been able to run a program improvement cohort since pre-COVID. So 2019 was the last year that we ran a cohort. And this year we'll be, again, having a group of consortia working through a process, supporting each other, and receiving technical assistance from our office. So this is just a snapshot of what that process will look like. In the next couple of months, they'll be working through a program analysis worksheet. We'll be gathering for a program improvement workshop the day before the fall managers meeting. Have a couple of months to complete a program improvement plan that they will implement over the second part of the year. We'll be conducting some site visits to those consortia that are in program improvement but are not going through a narrative writing process this year in early spring. Those who are part of the narrative writing process will get a site visit later in the year. And then we'll circle back to the August reporting submission in August 2026. And then we'll be able to generate a report card for this current year's data. So that's just a snapshot. Those who have been identified have been receiving additional information. And I'm going to turn it back to Jody.
All right. Thank you, Astrid. This is Jody again. And we're going to shift to talking about grants and finance. So I'm going to kick us off with some info and reminders about this fiscal year and next fiscal year. Before I talk about those things, I always think it's a good idea to be really sure we all know what years we are talking about. When I refer to fiscal years or FY, I am referring to the year from July to June. So FY25 is finished now. That was the year that ended on June 30th, 2025. And we are now a couple of months into FY26. So that is the current year. Also, you will hear me using some codes for our different sources of funding. These are UFARS codes. I know for some folks, these seem very strange and unfamiliar. Basically, the UFARS codes are a set of accounting codes that all grantees are required to use when you receive grant funds from MDE, as all of your programs do. And so there are many of these codes. You do not have to know them all, but a couple of important codes for our conversation today is FIN code 322. So FIN stands for finance. FIN code 322 refers to your state adult education or ABE funds. And FIN 438 refers to your federal adult education or ABE funds. And then FIN 801 is those IELCE funds for those of you who received those. So I want to start here by highlighting tasks that need to be completed in order to sort of wrap up and close out FY25 for both your state ABE grant, FIN 322, and your federal ABE grant, FIN 438. I'll give you a second to check out that list, and then I've got more information about all 4 of these tasks on the next slides. So the first key finance task. It's that time of year where I give you this reminder. So those of you who've been around many years have heard this many times. My apologies. However, if you are new, we want to make sure that everybody knows about this special and somewhat unusual sort of caveat for our state adult education grant funding, FIN 322. If last fiscal year for FY25, if you had something unexpected happen, like maybe you budgeted for a particular course, but then it didn't go, or you were going to make some purchase that didn't happen, and there was money left in that grant, you still have the opportunity to use up that money, even though fiscal year 25 is technically finished. So we have this carryover clause that says you can use up to 20% of that award amount in the first quarter of the following year. So that is the time period we are in right now. That's July 1 to September 30th of the following fiscal year. So basically, you've got a couple more weeks. If the full amount of that state ABE grant didn't get spent, please make sure to figure out a way to spend it up this month. We encourage you to think, if there are any funds left, we encourage you to think of that as sort of one-time funding for a one-time idea or project, like purchasing technology or paying a staff person for a particular short-term project. We don't really recommend using it for ongoing expenses like payroll. But we do want those funds to be used. If you don't use them, they just get lost. They just go back into the state of Minnesota bank account, and they're not available to our adult education system anymore. So please make sure, check with your accountant, your business office, to make sure all of those funds got used up. If they didn't, figure out a way to use them. The only thing that's really important when you do that is on the accounting end, there has to be a special UFARS code that is used. They have to be course coded 005. So there is a different course code every year to be used if you are carrying over funds. And one thing we have learned is that this system of course coding is likely to be unfamiliar to if you work in a school district, your accountants, your business office people may not be familiar with how we use these course codes for state adult education dollars. So we're asking you to be in touch with those folks and be the messenger to help guide and explain how this works. Definitely feel free, you or your accountant, business office person, feel free to reach out if this is confusing at all. But that course code is really, really important in our final reconciliation of these funds. So if you're using up FY25 funds now within the next couple of weeks, that's great. Just make sure that those expenses are coded 005. So that is your first task to wrap up FY25. Then we have a couple of tasks that relate to the FY25 federal adult education dollars. So that's FIN 438. So this for FY25, FY25 was the first year, was the first year that those federal adult education dollars went out in this new grant system called MEGS. So thank you to all of you for hanging in there and navigating that change. We know there's been some challenges in that. At this point, we are ask you or you if you have MEGS access or working with other folks in your business office if you don't have MEGS access to go in there and check and see if the entire amount of your federal adult education award for FY25 has been reimbursed to your program or your district. And if not, please make sure that reimbursement requests get submitted as soon as possible. We are working this time of year, we are always working very hard to close out the fiscal year. So we really do need you as soon as you can to make sure that all of those funds have been spent. This year more than ever, we don't want to leave anything open for question or change in terms of these federal dollars. Please spend them, make sure they got spent, and then make sure that reimbursement, those funds then hit your bank account. So that's something to do as soon as you can. Then there is one more step in MEGS that we want you to be aware of, although we're going to ask you to hold on it for right now. So the final step in that FY25 process in MEGS, again, this is just for federal funds, FIN 438. The final step is to submit a closeout report. Note that you have to have all of those reimbursement requests processed and closed before this closeout report can be submitted. So that is your next step, is to make sure that all the reimbursement requests get submitted and processed. And we are asking you, we want you to know that this report exists, but because we're doing some accounting work on the back end here at MDE, we are asking you to wait to submit this report, or check in with your business office to make sure that they know to just hold for a bit before submitting this report. We will be sharing some more information. Probably it will come out via email to each of our fiscal agent contacts, but we're just not quite ready for that final report to be submitted. I do know that there are a few of you out there that you or someone in the business office has already done this report, and that's okay. Don't worry about it. If you're in that situation, that's fine. No worries. But if this has not yet been submitted, please hold until you hear a green light from somebody here at MDE to go ahead and submit that. And then there is one final task to finish up, to close out both the state adult education grant funds and the federal adult education grant funds for FY25. And that is the FY25 final fiscal completion report. So this is an annual report that comes out from our office. It gets emailed out to our fiscal agent contact. That should go out to you in about a month, in about mid-October. It'll come from Haley. It will be emailed to you by Haley. It is due back to our office on December 15th. So we give you a couple of months to work on that. And part of the reason that we give everybody that amount of time is because, especially those of you who are in districts, which is the majority of our adult education grantees, your school district will be doing an audit of all of the education funding. And typically the timeline is that has to be wrapped up by December 1st. We want you to make sure, or to work with your business office to make sure that what you report for adult education expenditures, both state and federal, on this report matches what is in your district's audit that they and their audit report that they submit to MDE. So just make sure that this is not being filled out sort of in isolation. This should be this final fiscal completion report should be filled out in collaboration with your business office staff to make sure that what's reported there matches everything that's in that bigger audit. Because again, if it doesn't match, that can cause problems when we get to do the reconciliation of FY 25 funds. And then, oh, yep. So this is an example of the final fiscal completion report, just to remind you what it looks like. Again, just one copy goes out to our fiscal agent contact. So you might be somebody who works at a provider that's not the fiscal agent. You may never have seen this, and that's okay. But if you are the consortium manager, you should know about this document. And this is the one. It will look like this, and it will get emailed out in the middle of October. And then I just want to touch on the fact that we are now in FY26. So one important task for your FY26 funds is to you or someone that you work with go into MEGS and create a budget for your FY26 federal adult education funds. I know several of you have been reaching out to me over the last couple of weeks because that budget tile in MEGS was originally not working. So sorry about that. Finally, we got that figured out and we were able to fix it, and now it should be working correctly. So hopefully you should have no problem going into MEGS and submitting that budget. Please do that as soon as you can. And then just a reminder that we know MEGS is a new system, but in this new system, we are expecting grantees to submit reimbursement requests quarterly for those FIN 438 funds. So Clarice, in terms of the due date, there isn't a due date per se. Please do it as soon as possible. The fiscal year has already started. You will have to have a budget created before any reimbursement requests can be submitted, and we are asking you to submit those quarterly. So now is the time to make sure that somebody in your office is working on creating that budget. But there's no real due date in terms of when you won't be able to anymore. You can do it anytime during the year. And then just a note that I just want to acknowledge that when I'm talking about MEGS, I'm talking about that budget. That applies specifically to your federal adult education grant, your FIN 438 grant. And the state adult education grant, so that's the FIN 322 grant, that's the one that's much bigger, that continues to flow out through the system called IDEAS, as it has for many years. So that process has not changed. And at this point, you do not have to submit a budget for those state adult education funds. In MEGS, the only budget you need to submit in MEGS is for your federal funds and your federal grant. Okay, I'm going to pause just for a second to see if there are any other questions about those finance tasks. And if not, I'm going to hand it over to Julie to talk about IELCE.
Okay, thank you, Jody. I'd like to extend congratulations to the Integrated English Literacy and Civics Education grantees. I have them listed on this slide. I also just want to say that this past application round, we received the most applications that we've received in at least over a decade. And we also received requests for twice as much funding as we actually had available to put out in grants. So it was very competitive. So thank you to everyone who applied. And then a reminder for those who have received this grant that the contactee is Negatari Valens. He's a grant specialist. And he works with the official grant award notification, financial reporting, processing of payments, etc. Brad and I work on more, Brad's the authorized representative for the grant, and I work more on the programming side of the grant. So if you have any questions about FRF, financial reporting, etc., please reach out to Nigatari Valens. And then I just have a few transitions updates to give everyone. The first one is that all of the regional transitions plans have been approved. Apologize that there was a delay in starting the activities of about a month. But we did check, we just had a regional transition coordinators meeting. It did have an impact on a few areas, but overall, most activities were able to continue. So I was very happy to hear that. And then I wanted to mention that our online statewide training courses, I just want to do a call out to Atlas, who has taken on some of the coordination of this, and specifically to Carly Voschel and the individuals she's worked with to design what is a lot more of a streamlined process. We took all of your feedback that came from the fall managers meeting, and we've tried to make all those improvements. And we will try any recommendations or suggestions you have, keep them coming, and we'll do our best to accommodate them. So there are some the first thing to note that there is a new resource document, and this has all the information you need about the courses, the start dates, the registration dates. Very important is that you can customize flyers that are attached on this document to your local program so that you can promote these classes and have the contact be your local program. And then there's a FAQ list for each class as well. And that's just one of the resources. And then these are the classes that are available. If you want to know the start dates, refer to the document that was just referred to. So we have commercial driver's license, which is the Class B permit. And we have Microsoft Office Specialist, Paraprofessional, and PCA Personal Care Assistant. And then one more resource that's been created is the referral form. It's a nice form. People were questioning like, well, how do I get a student enrolled? Who do I contact? Just a lot of questions around that. And this has consolidated all of that into one referral form. It's here. The link's there. If you need to refer a student, go online and you can refer a student using this form. And that's it for the online statewide training courses. Are there questions about the IELCE grants, any transitions programming, or online statewide training courses? Oh, I see some great comments in there. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, they've done some real incredible work streamlining this process. So thank you. And so with that, I think I will turn it over to Professional Astrid.
Yes. Thanks, Julie. This is Astrid. And at this point, we'll share some information about upcoming professional development. I'm really excited about the huge variety of professional development opportunities we have coming up this fall. And I know that many of our support network providers are on the webinar today, so I just invite them to share any additional information in the chat as we go through the various opportunities. But first, just a reminder that the MN ABE Connect newsletter is now being sent by Atlas. Previously, it was sent from our office. Neil sent that out. Now it is coming from atlas@hamlin.edu. So make sure that you've added that to your contacts. You can watch out. It's almost always sent out on Tuesday mornings. So watch for that in your inbox. And if any of your staff are not getting the newsletter, they can subscribe on the Atlas website. That's really one of the most important communications that goes out, because all of the information you need about upcoming professional development is in there. Let's go to the next slide. Also want to share a number of different professional development resources that you can use as you plan for PD in the upcoming year. We have a PD overview document that was developed for Summer Institute and ABE Foundations, just a 2-pager with some of the key events and cohorts planned for the year. The Professional Development Catalog, which has brief descriptions of all of our PD offerings in a searchable website. An overview of all the PD events that have been planned to date. That's in a spreadsheet format. And then finally, of course, the events calendar is where you can go to register for any of the PD events that have been scheduled and have registration open. Please do share those with your staff. We also have our Minnesota Adult Education Canvas Course Index. So all of our professional development online courses are now delivered through the Canvas platform, and this is where you can go to find a list of all of them. We've got a growing number of courses. One of the most recent ones was just added, the Teaching Students About Mental Health, hosted through Panda. So encourage you to check those out. Let's go to the next slide, Neil. So let's dig into some opportunities that are coming up right around the corner. The application deadline for the Teaching Reading to Adults mini cohort is coming up on Monday. This is a great opportunity for your staff to learn how and why to administer diagnostic reading assessments and really learn some concrete ways that they can teach the components of evidence-based reading. So this is a combination of asynchronous online course activities and live webinars. It runs for 8 weeks. As Patsy said in the chat, it's going to be facilitated by 2 of our experts in the field, Kristen Kelly and Mara Martinson. So don't miss that opportunity. Let's go to the next slide. Also coming up here at the end of this month is Ready, Set, IET. This is a virtual event on September 30th for programs at really any stage in delivering IET. It's open to our IELCE grantees and any adult educator interested in IET. So this is a chance to refresh your knowledge about what IETs are and some of the processes involved here in Minnesota, learn about the single set of learning objectives, and then connect with experienced practitioners, Atlas experts, and others around IET resources and coaching opportunities. So we hope you'll join us for that event. Another wonderful virtual event coming up, again, right around the corner on October 3rd. This is the first of its kind, a Digital Learning Institute hosted by Literacy Minnesota. This will be a full-day online event focused on a variety of different topics. It's an opportunity to get the required distance and blended learning basics. There'll be a strand that focuses on that core information, and those who attend all of those sessions will have completed that required training. Other concurrent sessions around using technology tools, curriculum, there'll be LE training, including a teacher panel, digital literacy and tech integration, and information about AI. So encourage you to check out that information, but for staff, volunteers, people in teaching support roles or administrator roles. Let's go to the next. Also, for those of you who are interested in professional development around digital learning, the best practices in digital learning cohort will be starting at the end of October and will run through late February. This is an opportunity that is a revamped opportunity drawn from Distance Learning 101 and 102. Some of you may have participated in those cohorts in the past. And this is for folks in any role, and it's open to individuals or program teams. Adam Kiefer and Elizabeth Bennett facilitate this, and it's really a very rich professional development opportunity that got great reviews last year. So please do share this with your staff. North Regional will be in person on October 9th and 10th in Bemidji, and registration is open. You do need to register by Friday, September 26th to secure a hotel room. We're still working on the final agenda, but lots of great topics. You can see some of those listed here. So we hope that you'll join us for that in-person professional development and networking event. Also coming up later on this fall, Friday, November 7th is the annual Math Institute. Atlas is very excited to bring Pamela Weber Harris as a keynote speaker and morning workshop. And in fact, had to book her 2 years in advance. She's a very well-known math expert, and as Patsy says, a big deal. And that promises to be an excellent event with morning activities with Pamela and then afternoon concurrent workshops and resource sharing. And registration is open for that event. So please do let your staff know. Got another overview here of just a snapshot of some of the big events coming up in this calendar year. So you can go back to this to refer to those events and mark your calendars. All of those events are virtual unless we've got a location noted. And then just want to make sure to remind you all about our statewide mentorship experience that's run through Atlas. You may have some staff that have joined you this school year and folks that might benefit from connecting with someone else in the field. This is an opportunity for anyone in any role, manager, coordinator, support staff, instructors who are looking to learn from and with peers from other Minnesota adult education programs. The application is open. The next cohort will run February 13th through May 8th. And this is a really flexible offering. It's a 12-week commitment with one virtual kickoff orientation, but the rest of the experience happens between the mentor and the mentee. The Atlas team will work really carefully to pair you with someone who matches in terms of interests and experience. Meet with them 4 to 6 times over that 12 weeks, and then get ongoing support from the Atlas team. So if either you are interested in serving as a mentor to someone else, and we have heard from mentors that they really have gotten a lot out of this experience, or if you have newer colleagues who might benefit from a mentor, please share this information and the application. I am not seeing any questions in the chat. Haley, any questions that have come up on your end? Or does anyone have any questions about those opportunities or other professional developments this year?
Hey Astrid, this is Haley. There's a question from Rachel now in the chat. Is the fall managers meeting on the Atlas calendar?
I do not believe it is yet because we have just today finalized the location for that. As soon as registration is open, and that should be in the next couple of weeks, that will be up on the Atlas calendar. And then we'll also be sending an email out to the field with that registration information. Thanks for that question, Rachel. Anyone else? Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brad to talk a little bit more about the fall manager meeting.
Thank you, Astrid. This is Brad. And yes, we are excited about this, the upcoming fall manager meeting. The fall manager meeting will be Thursday, October 23rd. The time is scheduled to be from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. And the location just announced is Jimmy's Event Center in Vadnais Heights. And there will be travel reimbursement available for those traveling more than 100 miles round trip. Expect in early October to see registration available. The model for this year's fall manager meeting is we'd like to build on the model and utilize the model we did last year, which is less information dump and more collaborative activities, discussions, sharing, peer sharing, and learning from one another, engaging with one another, and utilizing our in-person time together the best we can. So, we need your input. And in fact, Neil just put a link to the fall manager meeting survey. We want your feedback about how we can schedule this event to make it as meaningful and to have as much positive impact as possible for you, and to help you with your work. So please click on that link, and we're going to give you some time to actually fill out that survey and give us some input. We are looking for surveys to be completed, or input for the fall manager meeting. We want all surveys completed by the end of the day on Monday, September 22nd. Yes, that's this next week, Monday. So just in less than a week. So please click on that, open up that survey, and please share with us what topics you'd like to see, what format it works best for you in terms of breakouts or full group conversations, any other feedback that you have for us. We will dive into that together as a team and utilize that feedback to help us plan the fall manager meeting. Astrid, anything you'd add to that?
No, that's great, Brad. Yes, just emphasize again that we really want to be responsive to your needs and interests. And we're wrapping up a little bit earlier than 2:30 here today. So hopefully you still have the rest of this half an hour blocked on your calendar. I encourage you to take some time right now to think about what you would like to discuss with us, with other managers, and give us some input on the format of that day. We appreciate your input.
Thank you, Astrid. This is Brad. All right. So as you're completing that survey, just a couple other final notes. The materials, including the recording and the slides for today's session, will be on the Literacy Action Network website. Our next web chat is scheduled for Wednesday, February 11th, 2026 already. That'll be our first web chat for the 2026 year. Again, from 1 to 2:30 p.m. And there is a link to register for the session there in the chat. Thank you all very much for all of the work that you do, especially this week in Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, but even beyond this week. Thank you for all the important work that you do, for all the services that you provide for adults in the state of Minnesota. Your work is essential and you are the adult education system, and you're the face of the adult education system. And so we thank you all for the wonderful work that you do. At this point, we can go to the next slide and we can end the recording and see what questions folks have.